Your hosts are here, Sammy and Michelle. By the end of this podcast, you'll know them well. Adulting, navigating the journey of life. Careers to relationships, pain and strife. Put down the rule book, rethink the status quo. If there's another direction you wanna go, find purpose, passion and mastery in all that you do with Status Post-Adulting.
Hey, Status Post-Adulting family! It's Sammy
and Michelle,
and you're listening to the 25th episode of Status Post-Adulting, where we're going to be talking about opportunity cost. But first, let me check in with my co-host, Michelle. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing great, Sammy. I was able to convince my mom to go to a yoga class with me. I started going to this place. They're offering free yoga basics classes on Saturday. And so I've really wanted my mom to try yoga. I think it would be something she would enjoy and be really healthy for her. And we had a really great time. And she was a really good sport, especially since she didn't really have any prior experience with yoga.
I'm so glad that you took our mom to yoga. And she has some prior experience. I'm sure she would want me to note that for everybody.
Our mom thinks that if she did stretching in India, that's considered prior experience in yoga.
Anyway, while you were gone, Michelle, I had my own adventures in the home. I came downstairs and I heard this billowing sound outside, and I went over to look at what was going on, and it was my dad watering the plants. He was like spraying them in this way that looked like he was trying to imitate a tropical rainforest, holding the hose down so the water came in a plane, and then like also whipping the water. And I had just listened to Mystic Michaela's podcast on nature empaths, and I realized this was probably deliberate. So I asked my dad, are you watering them like that so that way it feels like rain? And he's like, yes, exactly, Sammy. And he was very proud of me. And he's like, and that's exactly why I have this bird bath, so the birds will also come. And I look over at the fence, and there is one half of a coconut shell nailed to the wall, and it is holding up another half of a coconut shell, forming a bird bath. And I almost lost it, because we are going cocoa nuts in this house.
We are going cocoa nuts.
Yes. Our parents hoard coconut shells like crazy. Obviously, we eat a lot of coconuts to be having this many coconut shells in the house to begin with. So I really hope they're healthy. But we have coconuts everywhere. We have coconuts in the bathroom filled with coffee grinds. That's called an air freshener. We have coconuts in the kitchen with peanuts in it. Appetizer dish. We have coconuts with plants inside of them. That's a planter. I even saw my mom trying to attach half a coconut shell to a stick to make a spoon, which is just unnecessary because we have tons of spoons. So where we're from in India is called Kerala, and some people say that it translates to land of the coconuts. And my parents also both tell stories about how when they were younger, they used to sell coconuts for money. And I'm starting to wonder if they've taken this coconut thing a bit too far.
You're so small-minded, Sammy. In other news, I'm starting an Etsy store for coconut utensils. Please check it out.
Which brings us to today's topic, opportunity costs.
Taking a step back, Sammy, to an intro to econ class. Opportunity cost is the thing or value you give up when you make a decision.
As Paula Pant says in her podcast, Afford Anything, you can afford anything, but not everything. And I love that because she points out opportunity cost in a very clear way. Whenever we make a decision or a purchase, we are choosing one thing in place of many other choices.
For instance, Sammy, a good finance example is buying a car. When I was buying a car last year, I was surprised at the great variety that there is. And I'm not really a car person. I'm mostly looking to get from point A to point B.
Michelle, you're right. The car example is a great example. Oftentimes people are deciding between buying a $20,000 car or upgrading to a slightly luxury car that's maybe on the expensiver side, like $50,000.
More expensive
side. And they might think to themselves, the cost of buying the $50,000 car is $30,000 more dollars. However, that $30,000 could also be invested. And let's say you invest it for 35 years at an 8% interest rate. Do you know what that $30,000 would be in 35 years, Michelle?
Well, let me do some quick math in my head. Carry the fork.
No, I have a compound interest calculator app on my phone. Highly recommend. It would be worth over $440,000. Almost $500,000. That's a lot of money. For most people, that's many years worth of income.
Wow. Yes, by getting the cheaper car, you do have to give up the opportunity cost of your friends seeing you and saying, "Is that my bestie in a Tessie?" Shout out to Saweetie.
The Tesla would be worth, it's like $100,000.
They have the cheap ones now, I think.
Oh, my bad.
But they're not like cheap.
Yes. Your friend cannot say my bestie in a Tessie, or all my friends drive Range Rovers, or
I woke up in a new Bugatti.
They definitely cannot say that.
Clearly out of our income bracket.
Anyway, the point is, you could have probably retired way earlier had you bought the $20,000 car. But maybe you really love cars and it's worth many years of your life to have that car.
We're not here to judge your values. We don't know what's most important to you. It's just something to consider, but it helps make that decision for you. Is this worth what I'm giving up? Especially when it comes to things like big purchases. But Sammy, I unfortunately know that opportunity cost is not always a monetary thing. For example, I may have been in situations where I have stayed in relationships that weren't bad, but I also knew weren't going anywhere. At the time, I thought, oh, I have many years. The foolishness of youth. But in all seriousness, the things that you give up include but are not limited to your time, your mind space, being able to meet other people, being able to do things by yourself. The list goes on and on.
And Michelle, I would also say this is true for friendships. Sometimes we stay with friends who are toxic or negative for us, and they really take up a lot of our time, and they prevent us from meeting other good people.
It could include your family. When you wake up in a bed of coconuts. Just kidding. We do love living with our parents.
Yes, even if we have to pay the coconut cost.
Sammy and I did want to highlight those examples as different things that you give up when you're making some big decisions, but we also wanted to take it one step further.
That's right, Michelle. We're talking about the opportunity cost of deviating from your soul path. As we talked about it in our first episode, the most common regret of the dying was not living the life that was authentic to themselves. And the truth is, we end up in a place where we've lived a life that's inauthentic to us by making decisions where we are living a life for someone else. In the beginning, we are just trying to meet our needs. We get a job to pay the bills. We are focusing on surviving. But eventually people move towards a place of having excess. And when we start to have that excess, outside priorities start to pull on us. Whether that's lifestyle inflation, maybe your parents want you to buy a house, maybe you're being pressured to have kids, or maybe you're being pressured to get a higher education, a higher degree. Maybe you're getting pressured to get married. People start putting their recommendations with what you should do with this excess time, excess money, excess energy. That's when it's super important to think about what is actually important to you. What do you actually want to do with your life? You might not have all the details hashed out, but when you start making time for other people's priorities, that means that you are not leaving space to explore your own priorities.
Definitely, Sammy. This is why it's so important to know what your values are. Those are the things that if you compromise, those are the things that have the highest opportunity cost.
Exactly, Michelle. The opportunity cost of living your life for other people is not living the life that is in alignment with your soul.
Yeah, Sammy. If the regret of the dying is that they're not living their most authentic life, that should signal to us we have to be careful and conscientious of where we put our time, energy, and money, and make sure that no matter the decisions that we make, no matter what we give up, that those choices are in alignment with our values and what is going to bring us the most satisfaction in life. The people in our lives are always going to have different opinions on how we should live our life, but we're all different. We all value different things. And as long as you can align your vision with your greater values, you're really giving yourself a chance at that point to live a more happy and fulfilling life. Yes, you may be surrounded by a million coconut shells, but as long as you get to spend some little extra time with your family, what do those coconut shells really represent in the greater scheme of life?
So true, Michelle.
If you want to see a photo of the coconut shell bird bath, check out our Instagram at statuspostadulting. If you want to send us an email, let us know what you're thinking. If you have any questions or topics that you'd love for us to cover, or if you want to let us know how you found this podcast, especially if we didn't personally text you and ask you to listen to it, we would love to hear from you. statuspostadulting@gmail.com.
If you have any other ideas for coconut creations, send it to us
Keep them to yourself.
at statuspostadulting@gmail.com. And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and rethink the status quo.